We're going to take a look at the upcoming changes to the Watchman class from the PTS. Kind of talk about them, see kind of some of the strengths and weaknesses that are going to be happening, kind of go over them in detail a little bit. Really I plan to do this kind of for all the classes coming up. So we'll just take a look before it gets released, kind of see where I'm right, see where I'm wrong. So let's go ahead and start it off with our Watchman preview. So, on the PTS, the way combat is changing is you'll be getting choices at different levels. It's about roughly every 12 to 14 levels you'll be getting a choice. With Watchman, at level 27, you're going to get 3 different choices. So you're going to have Juyo Rend, Training Center, and Critical Bleeds. So Juyo Rend makes your Force Rend immediately make your Juyo stacks up to maximum. And it deals 3% more damage for each stack you have. So kind of what happens is, Watchmen used to have a very long ramp up time. So when you were ramping into your damage, you had to wait for your stacks to get fully stacked up. You had to wait for your Merciless Slash to go all the way up before you actually hit your peak DPS numbers. This kind of gets rid of that. This is definitely a PvP choice. You basically, the way I see it is you leap in, you Force Rend, you get your stacks up immediately, you annihilate, or Merciless Slash, then you start getting your dots rolling. So it's definitely made to be a little bit more bursty. I believe if you do it correctly with the right amount of alacrity, the way I've kind of looked at it, the way I've kind of felt with it on the PTS, is you can actually leap in, annihilate, Force Rend to get your Juyo stacks up to max, go through your dots, go through your whole rotation with Blade Barrage and everything, your dual saber throw, and then you'll have Annihilate to hit again, and then you'll be able to use your execute with Dispatch. So it really does ramp up the burst damage. It's definitely a PvP centered talent. You're not taking this in operations. You're not going to be hard switching like that. You'll have time to keep your stacks up with different things. It's mainly centered on PvP. The next choice that we have is Draining Center. So I don't think this choice is right based on, so all of these tooltips are coming from the PTS. So what's on there is probably wrong. It doesn't seem like it should work this way, but it might be. So activating Force Rend immediately builds 10 focus, and Force Rend deals quadruple damage whenever it consumes a stack of Zen. The problem here is you're going to have other dots consuming those stacks. And there's no way you're just going to put Force Rend on a target and wait for it to consume all the stacks. It's going to be a DPS lost. So Draining Center is pretty trash and shit utility. No one's ever going to take it. Building the 10 focus right off the bat is good. But anything past that, the problem is I actually think it's worse. Because what are you actually, you're giving up the max Juyo stacks to build 10 focus pretty much. Because that quadruple damage is not going to happen that often. It just isn't. So Juyo Rend is definitely going to do an overall DPS increase, even with burst damage. So it kind of makes no sense to take that one. Then finally, we have an interesting one. And this one I'm not 100% sure how it's going to turn out. So it's Critical Bleeds. Force Rend increases the critical chance of all your bleeds on the target by 10%. This is probably going to be the best PvE talent when it comes to making this choice. So you'll get all your Force Rend up, you'll get all your dots on, and you'll basically get 10% extra crit for everything. Which in long fights like Operation Bosses, it's going to be really good. It'll probably be a DPS increase over Juyo Rend. In PvP, you're going to take Juyo, and then with Operations, you're going to take Critical Bleeds. I don't see anyone taking Draining Centering unless the tooltip is wrong for some reason on the PTS, or it does something different, or there's some interaction I don't see, but it just feels bad. You're not going to be taking it. The next thing we have is our level 35 choice. So our level 35 choice really, basically BioWare fucked up here. There's only one 35 choice that we're going to take. Like, it doesn't matter if it's PvE, PvP. So we have Snaring Slash, Overwhelming Slashes, and Transcendence. So Snaring Slash, it lets your Slash and your Blade Barrage slow the targets they hit by 50% for 10 seconds. It seems very good, right? Seems like in PvP it's a nice little slow, you'll be able to snick on people. But as you read kind of further down the talents, you can see why you're not going to take it. Then you have Overwhelming Slashes. Bladed Barrage immobilizes the target for 3 seconds and generates 1 focus. That was good back when we had the Master Strike, back when that was a channeled ability. You would definitely take this to make sure your full channel hit. Now, since it's instacast, this doesn't do anything. It's completely useless. Honestly, the 1 focus is nothing. I mean, if it built your full focus bar, like if you got 10 focus off of this, maybe it's a compelling choice. Maybe if you're just going for raw, out-up PvE damage, that could definitely be a thing. But the next one is the one we already really have in the talent tree. Everyone's going to be taking it still. It's still the best talent there is. It's Transcendence. So it's exactly what it does now. So basically applies Transcendence to you and all your operation group within 40 meters. It purges movement impairing effects and increases movement speed by 80%. Increases melee and range defense chance by 10%. Lasts 10 seconds, 30-second cooldown. So the level 35 choice is pretty much always going to be Transcendence. No one's going to be taking anything else. It just isn't going to happen. There's not any situation where you can see someone that's not taking Transcendence for this. It's pretty much the gold standard as far as level 35 goes. There's no really other options here. Next thing we come into is we go to the level 43 choice. The level 43 choice is pretty interesting. Just overall, you're gonna have to make a decision. There's 3 choices in here that you can kind of make a case for. So we have Blood Wave, Force Fracture, and Rupturing Rage, which is probably Cauterized Rage or something like that. Not sure what exactly the name of it is for the public side on the PTS right now. Wasn't able to get it. But Blood Wave, dealing damage with Cauterized, sends a wave out from your target, causing your bleed effects to deal damage to nearby targets. So, cleave spec. If we're coming in and we're thinking we're going to have a big cleave game, this is what we're taking every time. If group arenas were a thing, we're probably taking Blood Wave. Just stacking more cleave damage on top of cleave damage is always good for that, especially since the dot spread still exists. So that's kind of what we're doing on our level 43 choice with the Blood Wave. It just depends on if it's a cleave game. If it's not a cleave game, we're probably not taking it. If it's not an arena, we're probably not taking Blood Wave. The next one is Force Fracture. I think this is wrong, but it replaces Cauterize, deals a small amount of direct damage and internal damage for each one of your bleeds on a target. This seems very slow. I just don't see this actually doing anything other than in a PvE environment. For PvP, it's going to be trash, or no one's ever going to take this. It's going to be a PvE increase, so you'll be able to choose this for your PvE. It's going to be a nice little increase there, but other than that, we're not going to really be looking at that. And then our next little choice, we have Rupturing Rage. So, Rupturing Rage is interesting. It really depends on what you're expecting in the match. So, if you're expecting cleave, you obviously want to go with the Blood Wave talent, because you're getting more dot spread from it. But Rupturing Rage has a thing where Cauterize now applies trauma and refunds focus while used when Zen is active. It doesn't sound good right off the bat, but as you see, kind of we get further into some of the talents. There's actually a talent that kind of synergizes really well with this. So Rupturing Rage is probably what we're taking. PvP wise, level 43 choice. The other 2 are very situational. Force Fracture might end up being like the talent to take, but it's just such a minuscule DPS boost. I just don't see it working. That's why Rupturing Rage is going to be so much better. So you get Cauterize, you get trauma on the target, you get your focus back when Zen is active, because you will be using Cauterize and Zen. It just makes too much sense. Then we kind of move on to our level 47 choice. So, Level 47 is interesting. All three of these have places in the tree where we can kind of see it going somewhere. So the first one we have is Force Clarity. It's essentially what we have now. It's the new what was it? The new ability that was added in 6.0. So grants the ability for Force Clarity. Consumes all abilities, charges of Force Clarity when activated, and applies the same number of stacks to you. Each stack increases your next direct single target melee attack by 25%. 30-second cooldown. Stacks up to 4 times, so it's 100% DPS increase. Here's the problem with Force Clarity right now. It's only good because of the Descent of the Fearless set bonus. Anything that is not that, it doesn't really work well with. So this is going to be very item dependent. If there's something else that replicates that, it'll be good. Right now, based on the items and stuff that we're seeing on the PTS, there's nothing that replicates Descent of the Fearless. So this is going to be trash. It just is here for who knows why. It's going to be better for other specs. Other specs also have this choice, where they can actually increase their burst damage. For us, for playing Annihilation, for playing Watchman, we're not too worried about this talent. We already have things earlier in the tree that are better for increasing our burst. We don't really need this one, especially the other two options. The other two options are a lot more intriguing. So next one we have is Bleeding Center. Now Bleeding Center might also be something that's incorrect on the PTS. Based on how it's read in the tooltip, I think it's actually working in a different way. So critically hitting with periodic bleed damage builds 2 focus even during Zen. This effect cannot occur more than once every 2 seconds. What I think this actually does, instead of build 2 focus, it builds 2 centering during Zen. So while you're using Zen, you're still building up your centering until your next Zen. And if it works that way, it is going to be an enormous DPS increase. There is no reason not to take it if that's how it works. Now, if it builds focus, it's not terrible. If it builds focus, you're probably going to take the next talent and not take center and not take Bleeding Center. But given the fact that the name is Bleeding Center, I really think that's a mistype on the PTS, and what it actually does is actually builds focus. I'm almost positive that's the case. I haven't had a chance to completely test it on this one, but that's pretty much what I'm getting. It's going to basically be building our centering while we're having Zen. And if we can do that, so Zen in every 2 seconds, so that means basically our Zen is going to start almost half full by the time the first Zen is over, so it's going to be a big deal. And then the final one is another interesting one. And it could be good, could be bad. It just depends on the overall damage that it's putting out. So we have Blood Fury. So Blood Fury takes all melee damage attacks, deal additional bleed damage while Zen is active. This effect cannot occur more than once per second. That's kind of the big caveat though. The once per second thing, so that means as long as our Zen is active, we can do additional damage. We don't know how much the damage is yet. But if we have all 3 of our dots on our target and we are using Zen, our Zen goes out in 2 GCDs. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense for us to do that. Makes almost no sense actually for us to use that. It's one of those things where I also see it could be a combination though, because if there could be a combination effect where you use this with the Force Rend talent previously. So if you're using the Force Rend talent with Blood Fury, maybe you can come up with some type of damage boost like that. So you put the Force Rend on, you wait through all those ticks, and then you get additional bleed damage from it. Could happen, but really the ones we're going to probably be using is Bleeding Center. It just makes too much sense. Even if it's focus or if it's centering, either way, it's just going to be a net DPS increase over the other ones. Force Clarity, if there's an item maybe that we don't know about, one of the bonus items or something they talked about that can make that good, that's fine. Watchman loves Force Clarity with the Descent of the Fearless. They can build their stacks really quick with it. but right now it's just really slow. It's too slow to be useful. You won't get enough of the Force Clarity buff or Furious Power. If you're on M side, you just won't get enough of it, enough times to make it worth it. Next thing we get is another kind of interesting choice. I'm not sure why they put the first talent in here, but we're kind of talking about it. So we have Inexorable, Intercessor, and Defensive Role. When we look at the Inexorable talent, it's basically what we already have now in our talent tree. It's in the tier 1 talent level. So you generate 4 focus when stunned, immobilized, put to sleep, or get knocked back. Additionally, the cooldown of Resolute is reduced by 30 seconds. Focused is not a big deal. We're playing Watchman, we don't really care about the focus all that much. What we do care about though is we care about the cooldown of Resolute. Having your CC breaker come up faster is always good. Especially if we're doing anything with Alacrity, we can kind of make it even faster. So that could be a thing. I just don't know if it's worth it because of all the CC taken out of the game. So we kind of go through here and look at the abilities that are removed too. A lot of the stuff that we're removing is a lot of CC. So, in my opinion, right now it doesn't look like it's going to be that useful. Next thing we have is Intercessor. So, Force Leap grants an additional charge, builds 2 focus. It's good. Nothing else to say about it. It's really good, especially since we're losing some mobility. I see a lot of people taking this. It would be a lot better if they went back to like the 0 meter leap. But they'd not. But basically with the level 60 choice, Intercessor makes a lot of sense. We get to build 2 focus, we get an additional charge. The other 2 talents aren't that great. The final choice that we get Defensive Role. So it reduces the AoE damage taken by 30%. Increases internal and elemental damage reduction by 3. We have that talent now. It really going to depends on the cleave specs that are coming out. Like, if there's a bunch of cleave specs, we're going to take it. Madness has been a problem right now in the PTS. It's performing really well. We'll kind of see how things go. That might be the standard pick. But right now, the Stun Breaker reducing we're not going to need. There's a lot less CC. So it's either going to be between the Double Leap or the AoE damage reduction. And we're just going to have to kind of wait and see. I think it's really going to go more towards the AoE Leap. Not the AoE Leap, the Double Charge. Because honestly, don't stand and stew, but you can get out of most AoEs. Next choice we're going to get with Watchman is going to be our level 73 choice. This is when Watchman takes a big power cut. All of these, there's only going to be one choice in this category, and the choice is going to suck. Quite frankly, you're going to lose all the CC ability because of this choice. So we have Force Stasis, Blade Blitz, Guarded by the Force. Force Stasis, everyone knows what it is. If you played Watchmen before, it's our stun. It's our hard stun that we've had forever since the beginning of the game. It builds 3 focus, and it can be cast while moving. The next one is Blade Blitz. So Blade Blitz, we got that back in, I want to say 5.0 or 4.0. It's basically the dash. So it makes you dash forward 20 meters and increase your defensive chance by 100% while dashing. And then finally, Guarded by the Force. Signature Sentinel kind of move. Reduces the damage you take by 99% for 6 seconds on a 2-minute and 30-second cooldown. This is the choice that really kind of depletes the power level of Sentinels and Marauders. You have to choose between a hard stun and Guarded by the Force. The choice is always going to be Guarded by the Force. So they're really losing CC here. And you'll see when we get to the abilities that they're taking out, it's going to be even more CC that we're actually losing. Obviously, no one's going to be choosing Blade Blitz. We don't need it. That's why if you go back to the previous one where we're talking about getting the Double Leap, that's why I think the Double Leap is going to be so important right now. Because we're losing a lot of mobility too. So that Double Leap is going to make up for all the mobility that we're losing, and other classes aren't. Like Mercs still have the double rocket out, things like that. So we kind of go through those classes later on. So the default choice here is going to be Guarded by the Force, damage reduction, anti-focus, all good stuff. Be able to jump in, take up cooldowns. It's a little bit shorter cooldown too, which is interesting. Because it's like, what, 3 minutes right now currently? So it's a bit shorter. That'll be something to look at when we actually go through it. Next choice we're going to get is our level 78 choice. It's not really the greatest of choices. All of these choices are very mediocre. Some other classes get big power boosts for some of their final choices. Sentinel and Mara is not so much right now. So we have Inspired Focus, Interceptor, and Brazen. Inspired Focus, you heal for 1% of your maximum health whenever you activate an ability that consumes focus. And Inspiration also generates 12 focus when activated. Kind of useless, honestly. That 1% heal is not that great. And then the focus generation, again, that's every 5 minutes because of the inspiration buff. So it's nothing we're going to be using, especially in PvP. We don't use inspiration much in a PvP unless we're in like a group setting because it takes away our DPS is actually lower. Other than just hitting the Zens constantly, so we're not really going to be using this ever. Interceptor is the next one. So Force Leap and Force Rend snare the target, reducing its movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. It's a good slow, really is. It lets you stick to the target. Again, though, it's not really necessary. If you have the double leap, maybe this makes more sense. I don't know. We don't have the Force Leap right now that really slows a target for 50% for 6 seconds like it is on the PTS. Maybe it's really good combined with the double leap and some other things. Maybe you get really sticky to people and you kind of don't have the whole melee issue. Then finally we have Brazen. Increases your damage reduction by 2% and you build 2 focus when attacked. Cannot occur more than once every 1.5 seconds. Brazen would be amazing if it didn't have the 1.5 second kind of caveat on it. If it just basically built focus whenever you were attacked, people would take this all day. It's a huge DPS increase. It's like the PTs when they have their thing where they get attacked. Given the fact that it doesn't happen that often, it's not great. All of these talents are kind of mediocre. I see Interceptor pretty much being used standardly because 2% damage reduction isn't that good. But a Force Leap is reducing movement speed by 50% for each target you leap to. And we're probably going to take the double leap too. Plus Force Rend also gives us a slow. That means we're really going to be hard to kite. A lot harder to kite than we are now. Especially with the lack of CC. So it might be pretty good. And then the final thing is the abilities that are going away. Some big abilities that are going away. So Pacify / Obfuscate. That's a big one. If anyone doesn't know what it does, so it obscures the target's vision, reducing its melee and range accuracy by 90% for 6 seconds. That's huge. That is 1v1 potential, like out the door. Just ops, not being able to hit you. Very good on mercs. Having PTs miss their rail shot. It's just such a good 1v1 potential cooldown that we just don't have anymore. It's going to take that down. Now, I don't understand why that's being removed. I think they could have put it somewhere else in the tree. It would have been a lot better if they would have just anything else. Even at like our late game choices, just to give us Obfuscate back would be so much better. The next thing we're losing is All. So we do not have any CC unless we make a choice into it now. So our soft CC on All that used to paralyze 8 enemies for 6 seconds and damage broke the effect, we no longer have. Just gone. So long story short, Maras and Sentinels are not going to have any type of CC at all. They just won't. That's why I don't think the CC breaker is that big of a deal, because other classes are kind of going down the same boat. And then finally Crippling Slash, no one cares about because no one uses. So slashes the target for weapon damage and slows its movement speed by 50%. That's kind of what we're expecting with everything being removed. And if we take a look and kind of go back through to our level 27, so most likely we're going to be taking our Juyo Rend, so it makes our DPS go out faster, don't have to wait on our stacks. Then at level 35, we're going to be taking Transcendence. No other pick there. Level 43 choice is going to be a toss-up. But Rupturing Rage looks good. It just cauterize with trauma, refunds focus while using Zen. Pretty standard, pretty good. The other ones are very situational, so that's probably going to be better. Level 47, take what you want. I don't know. I mean, Bleeding Center sounds good on paper. But so does Blood Fury. They're both DPS increases. It's just going to be a matter of which one's better. That's just gonna need some testing. We're not gonna find that out. Level 60, we're taking Intercessor defensive role depending on the cleave specs that are out there. So if there's a lot of cleave, which Madness has been really good right now on the PTS and everything, we're taking defensive role. If not a lot of cleave, we're taking our second leap because we don't really need the stun, another stun. The 4 focus doesn't do us anything on Inexonerable, and the Resolute doesn't care. Use your CC Breaker better. Level 73 choice is going to be Guarded by the Force. There's really no choice here. It shouldn't be called a choice. They should just give you Guarded by the Force. The other ones are just that much worse. I mean, we're going to give up our hard stun, but we can't give up Guarded by the Force. It's too important to the playstyle of a Sentinel. If you didn't have Guarded by the Force, like once you get focused, you're just going to melt so hard. Yeah, you can't do it. Especially if you have a team with healers. Like, it's such a get out of free jail card. Like, you're low on health, you can pop that. Everyone's focusing you, they can heal you back up. It's too good to mess out on. Level 78. It's going to be Interceptor or Brazen. If you're taking the double leap, you're probably taking Interceptor just for the slow. If you're not taking double leap, you're probably taking Brazen. A little bit more tankiness, that kind of thing. And then, again, the abilities removes Pacify, Awe, Crippling Slash. The biggest one is Pacify. It just really murders the 1v1 potential of the Sentinel. So Sentinels are going to be a lot more... Overall, they're going to be a lot more like Teamfight, kind of. They're going to do very well in like chaotic situations. They're going to be less good at 1v1s with the Watchman spec, which is kind of absurd because that's kind of what it's built on. But that is the 7.0 Watchman preview.